We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
Would you like to remember who you were before the world told you who you had to be? In a lot of the ways, I think that question is at the heart of men's work, certainly one of the big ones. Most of us, and this is sure true for me, spend years learning how to survive, how to perform, provide, protect, keep it together. Somewhere along the way, I lost touch with something simpler and more essential. We forget what it feels like to belong. We forget how to ask for help. We forget that healing doesn't always begin with fixing ourselves. It often begins with remembering ourselves. Today's guest, CJ Goulding, has built his life's work around that idea. CJ is the co-founder of Boys in the Wood, an organization creating spaces where Black men reconnect with nature, build authentic brotherhood, and strengthen their mental health. What struck me most about this conversation is the way CJ talks about community, power, and healing as things that grow when they're shared. We talk about vulnerability, stories we inherited about masculinity, why nature is such a powerful teacher, and how communities become stronger when men are willing to show up honestly for one another. Along the way, CJ shares some stories that show the powerful depth and care that men show for one another because because we're born to do that. This conversation reminded me there are more ways than ever to be a man, and that every time one of us chooses connection over isolation, we help write a new story for all of us. Welcome to the Mankind Podcast. Hey, everybody, it's Boysen Hodgson with the Mankind Podcast. Welcome back. Mankind Podcast, the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is more than one way to be a man. Today, I am hanging out with CJ Goulding. CJ Goulding is the founder of Boys in the Wood, and we're going to be talking about that and a whole bunch of other things. First of all, CJ, say hello.
Thank you, Boysen, for sharing this platform with me, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Me too. CJ and I met not so long ago, about a year ago, I guess, probably, through Jana Meyerowitz Turner and the Boys Club events that she has been putting on in New York City. And then we got to meet in person a couple of times down in New York. This is a dude who's got a charismatic magnetism about him, and I'm excited for you to hear what he's about. CJ Goulding is a weaver, a facilitator, a community builder, and a storyteller. He shows up to make three things happen: growth in people, growth in connection between people, and growth of communities. He's committed to redistributing power and resources to achieve equity and justice. His work involves supporting leaders, creating change in their communities, and telling new stories about our connection to community and the outdoors. Like his story, Why I Wear Jordans in the Great Outdoors, which you should look up. CJ is a co-founder of Boys in the Wood, which uses nature as the context where Black men build brotherhood and mental health and become beacons for healing in their communities. So there's a little bit about CJ, and let's jump right in. So first of all, I like your origin story. So give me some origin story. How did you get into doing work with Black men in the outdoors?
Yeah, so I think that story starts before me, before a Black man. I like to say that my story starts with my mother and my grandfather, my mother and my grandmother, who always had their hands in the dirt for food, for flowers, for fun. And from early on there, they instilled in myself and my brother a love for being outdoors, a love for exploring, and that mindset of nature being a part of our everyday lives. My early career was spent in youth leadership development, specifically in the outdoors, so running outdoor programmings. I've led backpacking trips for high schoolers in Washington State, where we were out on a canoe on a lake for 2 weeks at a time. I've led community organizing programs for young adults using nature as the focus that have taken me everywhere from the streets of Compton to the very top of Alaska to Inuit and Yupik villages to learn more about their culture as well. And so this idea of nature has been a very critical component of my career, my upbringing. And then I think about 5 years ago, a little right before or 6 years ago now, right before COVID hit, a friend of mine invited me to take a few of his friends camping and on a backpacking trip. And it was a group of 4 Black men, and I think on that trip, I realized that there was such a strong gap of places where and this was expressed by the men there, places where they could feel vulnerable, could drop their guard, could share the things that are going on in their day-to-day life and even simultaneously just be introduced to the wonders of nature. And I was like, okay, my first career or the first part of my career, this is opening up a new door into providing it for men, for Black men, and basically healing people who look like myself using the skills and resources that I had already been connected to and had been growing.
Thank you. You said food, fun, and flowers. And that just conjures. Are there other things that sense? So, like, that's how you grew up. You grew up with your hands in the dirt. You grew up with that love of the outdoors. And then fast forward through all this context. What do you think that getting Black men outdoors together in those spaces of vulnerability, in those spaces where they can connect, what kind of, I'm going to say, generational wounds does that
Mhm.
touch and help?
Yeah, so I think it's a two-sided coin. Your question is a two-sided coin. There are generational wounds and trauma that we are working to heal, and but I think I'll start with generational remembrance.
Yes.
I think Adrienne Marie Brown and the author Carolyn Finney, in their writing, they talk about how we've always had this eternal connection to nature. The systems of oppression, patterns of slavery or industrialization, or the way that society is currently built, those things have separated us from nature and from part of our core aspects of humanity. And I think part of what we're doing with Boys in the Wood, part of our aim is to put Black men in particular in a place where they can remember and reconnect to that. The healing and the wounds and the trauma, that part will come. That part comes as you're connected to the source, as you're connected to who you have been, who your ancestors have been, and you form that firm foundation, and then you're able to be more open to talk about, "Hey, like, why is my mental health this way? Why is my relationship with other men, why does it look like this? Why not only what might have gone wrong, but what can I build in a positive way moving forward into the future?" And all of that starts with this remembering, this great remembering. And I think I always point to, or in a funny way, reference Rafiki and Mufasa talking to Simba in The Lion King when he's saying, "Remember who you are." And like that is part of what we're trying to do. Put people in a space to remember, then they can go and be king.
Love that. The idea of bridge building also jumps into the conversation here. It's like, why I wear Jordans in the outdoors. That
Mhm,
there's this idea of remembrance, an idea of stepping fully in so that we can confront and also holding the bridge, right? Because
mhm,
it doesn't have to be one way or another way. This is an integrative practice. So talk about,
mhm.
like, okay, so why do you wear Jordans in the outdoors? Hey, it's Boysen. Sorry to interrupt. I'm jumping in with an invitation. If you've listened to a single episode of this podcast, you've heard me or Brandon talk about the Mankind Project. It's a global community committed to one simple but very complicated idea. We're men helping other men to become better men. One of the ways we make shift happen is through a weekend rite of passage called the New Warrior Training Adventure. It's not a retreat. It's not a workshop. It's an intensive. It's a digital detox. It's a crazy ride. It's a uniquely life-changing space. And it's a chance to step away from the regular world, tell the truth about where you are, and discover what's possible, surrounded by men, some of whom have been right where you are right now. And if you're a friend, a partner, a wife, a mom, or a grandma who loves a man, maybe he's waiting for an invitation. Share it with him. You can learn more at mkpusa.org.
Yeah, I think that's how the essay ends, in talking about being a bridge between my community and a reconnection to the outdoors. And I think all of us hold, based on our life experiences, how we grew up, where like the connection to resources, our privilege we have, our communities, our culture, we have all of us have a unique set of skills, a unique combination of who we are. And there's power in leveraging that. And so for me, the Jordans are a symbol of that power. The Jordans allow their a form of communication with my community.
Yes.
They represent culture. They unspoken, not the credibility, but there's an unspoken language that it creates, that it opens up. And I think the idea of being a bridge for me, just as bridges are like connected on two sides of a gap, the idea of being a bridge is to be able to stand in the place of a place of separation, and to be able to hold hands with both sides and say like, "Hey, I know what it's like here where you are. I also know what it's like on the other side. I If you like coming with me, there's a place where you can try to cross it safely." And so, just as bridges help people cover chasms, gaps, rivers, I think my idea, or my this essay, these Jordans are a communication to say like, "Hey, I understand this part of you. I want to introduce you to this new thing, but let's start with the familiar. Let's start with a place of safety. Let's start with a place of comfort." And so that's a part of that bridge theory, that stepping stone theory, that I try to apply whenever I'm introducing something to a new audience.
Are there any stories that pop up into your mind around working with men in this context, and just the kind of discomfort that can arise? Like, or you have any stories of like, damn, that was the first time that this guy had to face this or this part of himself, or maybe a part of you that you've had to face in doing this work with men?
Yeah, there's a lot. I'll start with the physical and go into the emotional, and then wrap with
Perfect.
a story of myself. I think there we have the idea of creating a safe space where people are willing to step into the new or embrace or challenge themselves is so sacred. We've had grown men learn how to ride a bike on our retreats. Like,
Wow.
and I
Yeah.
think the
Wow.
vulnerability as a grown man to say like, "Hey, we're doing this activity of mountain biking. I don't know how to ride a bike." And then for somebody else in the group to step up and say like, "Hey, the group is going to go this way and do what we plan to do, but I'll stay with you, and we'll work through how to ride a bike." Well, like, you may not be a pro by the time we're done, but, like, we'll work with you I'll work with you to make that happen. And I think as men, like, the stereotype is that we are proud, we are full of pride, we have big egos, vulnerability is difficult, but it says something for someone to say, "Hey, I don't know how to do this thing that children know how to do," and it for someone else to be like, "Hey, we'll step in and we'll help you learn this." And then when the group, like, returned, everybody is cheering this person on.
Yes.
Everybody was cheering him on, and, like, making it something that is, like, powerful and not individual. Not a, "Hey, there's something wrong with you," but like, "Hey, this is really cool that you're able to do this, and we're gonna be here celebrating with you."
Yes.
On other I think last year we had a retreat where a young man had lost his father, and the on the day of the retreat was an anniversary of his passing. He hadn't shared this with anybody, but he was there was a feeling of anxiety from not being there to support her on this anniversary. And he even himself hadn't like fully processed it, but he was like his concern was being there for his mother in that way. And so he hadn't processed it fully himself, but he had his concerns being there for his mother. And so we had a session that was led by our team therapist. And following the session, he stood up and he was like, "Hey, I just met y'all yesterday. This is day 2 of the retreat. I just met y'all yesterday, but, like," he explained the situation. "This is the anniversary of my father passing, and, my mom is really missing him. It really hurts it really hurts for her. I was wondering if we could, like, if I could call her or, like, if I could record a video of everybody having a moment of silence for my dad and for her, and then, just expressing love." And so, again, a group of 30 guys who just met each other yesterday, this guy who's dealing with loss, he's becoming vulnerable in this space. He feels a sense of connection here in this space to open up about this, and everyone feels is encouraged to show up for him in that way. And so he records the moment of silence, and then he, like, breaks down in tears, and everybody without hesitation, like, again, touch is another stereotype where it's
Yes.
like, this doesn't happen. Emotion, vulnerability, these things don't happen. But the evidence we've seen the evidence that, like, when you fertilize and cultivate the soil, things grow. And I use the nature metaphor specifically because, like, that's what happens. And so everybody gathers around him, hugs him, pats him on the back, and, like, he's talking about it for the next 3 days. Like, I don't know why that came up. I don't know why I decided to ask for that, but it was just what I needed to ask, and everybody really showed up for me. So those are, like, physical and emotional, ways that it changes people. And then for myself, I think one of the things that I've learned is that, on this path, I know that this is a purpose and a calling because the tests have been equal in magnitude to the potential for positive change. And so as I've been working with my team and with these men to build this, there are a lot it shows up as a mirror, and it shows me both the skills and the strengths that I have in fostering and building this community, but then it also shows me my weaknesses. It shows me where I lack in leadership and clear communication. It shows me where I need to ask people for help and to delegate and to build a team around me instead of my default of trying to do things on my own. And I think there have been times where I've battled with depressive episodes and thoughts where I'm like, "Am I doing enough? Am I letting people down?" Is like, and it feels like the challenges rise to meet the potential of what this can do for these men in their community. And so I'm not perfect. I've definitely messed up along this journey, and I think it continues to show me ways that I can grow. It
Yeah.
it puts me in places where I'm understanding what the men who are going through what we're doing are feeling, and it just reminds me that, like, on the other side of these tests are these positive impacts, and so that's part of what keeps me going.
That's
That was a really
fantastic.
long answer, I'm sorry.
No, that was a really good answer. There were 3 beautiful stories in there that kind of connect to a whole lot of stigmas that we face as men generally, right? Like you said, with bike riding. And then the flip of support, like what it means to cheer our brothers on
Yeah,
as they achieve. And that the thing that they talked about actually at the Movember event that you and I attended together, where what I think other men are going to do versus what I am willing to do in the moment.
yes,
So a man steps up and is vulnerable and asks for support and asks a whole group of men for something, emotional, something vulnerable. Well, the projection is that men don't do that, or men aren't willing to do that, or men can't do that, or whatever it is. But then the reality is that men blossom in doing that. Men open in doing that. Like we're waiting for those moments where
absolutely.
we can show our full hearts and love one another and be there for one another in those ways. I think I think that's just spectacular. And then
Yeah.
I just honor you for these folks don't know you that you're talking to. And here you are sharing, like, it's asking you to step more fully into it's asking you to own your shortcomings. It's asking you for looking at how you ask for help. It's asking you for stepping into more of who you are. And again, it's breaking all the stigmas. It's like, CJ, that dude's got it all together. Like, nah, CJ's like just another dude who's got all of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's breaking and it's rewriting. I
Yeah.
love storytelling as well, and I think any opportunity we get to write a new chapter or tell a new story of what manhood looks like is a win. And I think with the Mankind Project, with what we're doing, I've been excited to learn just about the plethora of organizations and people and men who are stepping into this kind of space and vulnerability and leadership because I'm like, yeah, every single opportunity we get to tell more stories about this, the more normal it becomes, the more we stop we don't we our focus isn't on like, "Hey, men don't do this," but it's more like, "Hey, like, I have an uncle, I have a dad, I have a brother, I have a son, I have a friend," and we have examples of this everywhere, and it becomes widespread, and so I'm excited, I've been excited to just talk with you, learn from you and others about how this shows up in all these different places.
Nice. You suggested something in our intro conversation a while back around this idea of kind of overlapping things. And it's in your bio, it's kind of written in about committed to redistributing power and resources to achieve equity and justice, supporting change in community and telling new stories. So it's right there. But the idea of health systems, communities, and access as overlapping or connected systems, overlapping or connected things. Talk more about kind of how you see your work fitting into the larger movements of, not just men's health, but community health and equity and, environmental justice and kind of all of these systems.
Yeah, so one of the tools that we used often in our community organizing trainings that I used to lead is Marshall Gann's Power of Personal Narrative. And he has a framework where you start by learning the story of yourself. You start by telling the story of yourself, practicing that, then telling the story of us or community or groups and then telling the story of now. And so this evolution that as you understand your story and share your story, you understand how it connects with others. You're able to tell the story of a group of people that unifies them, and then that story, that unity, that community, that story empowers people towards action. And I think health works the same way. Like the idea of health works the same way. So we talk about like or environmental justice or access, all of these systemic issues work the same way. It starts with an individual change. It develops into a community or institutional level change as that becomes contagious and shared. And then it develops into these policies and systems that reinforce what the individuals and the communities believe. And so in a similar way, when I think you can look at our health systems policies, our health po and you or our policies around access to nature and what we've done to our environment and environment how environmental justice affects, the communities, primarily communities of color. You're like, "Oh, yeah, we're missing something here." And for me, this Venn diagram is like, "Hey, what can we do that helps to heal and empower men particular in this case? And then how can we infuse or, like, charge them up in a way where it starts to have a ripple effect?" And because I believe so strongly in the power of nature as this core part of our humanity and the idea of community and healing and strength that you can find there, my vision or idea is that similar to as it says in our mission, if we can help Black men heal and build brotherhood and mental health in nature, they become better fathers. They become better brothers, better community members, better leaders, better uncles, better, mentors, all of and it they start to they are resourced, their battery is filled, and they become more aware of what's happening around them. They start plugging in their community, and their communities become stronger. and you start pushing the walls of that society has built up around, or that these policies have built up around, and you're like, "Hey, why isn't mental health care more available?
Mm.
I need to let me do something about that." And whether that something is me learning so I can support my community and my community's mental health better, or me advocating for policies to shift around me, like, you start to when your battery is full, you have the energy to start shifting the boundaries and the walls that have been built around you. And so I think our goal is really to empower and charge up enough men, enough people to show that it has this effect, so that we start to redefine those systems. We start to redefine, and when I say redefine, I don't completely mean burn it down. I think some of that needs to happen where, like, there's some of the systems and policies around us need to change, but I also mean recentering where we look for those things. Like, who do we look to for health? Is it the pharmacy? Is it a therapist? Is it a big institution? Or are we looking to our community members? Are we looking to our families? Are these now the wells of well-being that we have access to? The idea there is that we shift the center of health and communities and access and well-being to being in our communities, and then challenge the systems, the health systems, the policies to reflect what we are building internally.
I love the metaphor of charging up, energizing, building up the battery. And that there's kind of this story of there's also a scarcity kind of thing that pops up for me. It's like, I don't have it, whatever the it is, whatever
Mhm,
access to myself, vulnerability, health, connection to nature. I don't have it. And that puts blinders on me. And then, as you said, I start to learn my story. Now I have it, and that charges me up some. And now all of a sudden, I'm seeing around me at all the other people who might not have it,
mhm,
and being able to be that source, being able to be
mhm.
that kind of builder to help other people.
The one thing I'll add to that is that, I think oftentimes in Western society we tend to be individualistic, and so it's like, "I don't have it. I have to do this. I am not well." And I think if we think about our ancestors lived in community. It wasn't an "I don't have it," it was a "we have it." So if you are, low today, somebody else has it for you. And so this opens us up back up to, "Hey, how are we well?" And if one of us is not well, how do we respond? Where is our store of knowledge and resources to be able to make sure that we're collectively, or we're measuring our health and well-being on a collective scale?
Beautiful. Ties to words that I'm hearing a lot more these days as things look so dim out there in some places is the idea of mutual aid.
Mhm,
And like that's what we're talking about in some sense, right?
mhm.
It's like we now understand that we are living in a mutual aid and interdependence, and that I'm not going to have it all every day,
Yep.
but there's strength in being able to say, "Hey, today I've got today I've got 35%. That's what I got. And can you support me?"
Mhm.
And the reality is that there are a lot of people who will, who can, and then we get to give that to each other, which is like a
Yes.
huge gift.
Yes. 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 I it so it reminds me of this of a Kenyan proverb that says, like, "A strong tree doesn't fear," or "A tree with strong roots doesn't fear strong winds." And it because it's the proverb, it doesn't say that strong winds aren't going to come, it doesn't say that storms aren't going to come. It just says that, like, hey, if our resource and our store is strong, if it is together, if it is because of our us being in community, then even as we face difficult times, that's not our focus isn't on the difficult times. Our focus is on our strength and where that comes from, because those times will come. The times that we are in are here, and it's easy to get distracted, or not distracted. It's easy to get for anxiety to build up around what the world looks like outside, and then it's like,
Yeah.
and asking yourself, what can I do? But I think there's something like driving and like purposeful about, hey, I can, it doesn't matter what the day looks like, I can build community. I can check in with my community. I can be a living example or an embodiment of a community member. And that will provide strength for us to make it through whatever is outside.
Awesome. How does this help heal hustle culture?
I might be the wrong person to ask that, even as I'm trying to do this, like,
Because
that's
they're
one of the
hustling.
lessons. Yeah, I'm trying I'm trying to hustle, and I have to be reminded, like, "Hey, you can't burn yourself out being an embodiment for the thing that you're trying to, for the opposite of the thing you're trying to create for others, or that you're preaching." It's a practice. I think just speaking, I tell friends all the time, or one of the things I tell friends out loud, hoping that I listen to my own words, is that none of this is accomplished in a day, but it's repetition. And so every opportunity that I get to practice not hustling myself to the bone is the writing, is like the creation or feeding of a new habit. And culture, like it's such a, and it's, I think these hustle culture is something that is so prevalent, is so strong, is so fast moving that it feels, sometimes it feels wrong to be to move against, to swim upstream in that sense. But every single rep um of that is a reminder that like life can be different. And even in small ways, like I've had people be like, I went to the retreat, I came back, and maybe I journal once a month now, and I go for a 15-minute walk in the park. I try to do it 3 times a week. That in itself is an intentional shift away from hustle culture. And the effects are often not immediate where you will see it, but like 15-minute, 45 minutes of walking outside a week, and you extend that for a year, like people will see the difference. Like, we had one guy come on a retreat in Washington State. A therapist teaches breathing exercises. We were in North Cascades National Park, clear, clean air, and he returned home the next day, and doctors found blood clots in his lungs. But they said that, like, the relaxation, the breathing exercise, the peace, these practices he learned, they helped relieve some of his issue. And it's like, yeah, we may not see that immediately, but that's hustle culture. And these are ways to shift how we engage with that, and ways we create a new culture individually, and then as we continue to practice it in our communities.
Nice. How does joy manifest in the work that you do with men?
And that's another one of the things that stereotypes say we don't do. But again, one of the things that I often say is that when you remove the men should blank, or men don't blank from men, particularly Black men, where society paints this stigma and the stereotype of like danger, aggressiveness, like all of the above. I've gotten to meet the boy within the men that we work with so often, where like they are loose and creative, and the walls that they either think and feel in their head, or see in their head, or feel on society, they're down, so they get to explore, they get to show up and sing karaoke when that's not something they're not used to doing. They get to share their poetry, or they get to mess up and make mistakes, but like I get to meet the boy who they were, or like the man who they are, basically the boy who they were before society told them what it meant to be a man.
Yeah.
And that is freedom. Like the restraints that society put on you, you feel like they're off, and so you get to be the person who you are in an uninhibited way. And so joy comes naturally. It's like a clogged pipe. If it's clogged, nothing's coming out. But if you remove the clog, things can flow, and then the system does what it's supposed to. You operate at your full potential.
Beautiful. What are a couple of your favorite practices as a dude who has done more outdoor education and more outdoor connection than 95% of the people out there in the audience? What are some of your simple favorite things to get out and do?
I mentioned the backpacking trips that I used to lead for high school students, and I think one is being on the water. I love the water. I think anytime you get people on the water also has a, you know, a reputation or a stigma of
Yeah,
danger
stigma. Yeah.
and all of that. And you get people on the water and they get to experience the calm, the power, the connection. I just love being on the water. The second is a having introducing people to a space where they can see the stars is such a world expanding experience. To witness the power, the awe, and the majesty of nature in that context is it changes people's perspective on themselves and on the world. And then I think, a third is not necessarily a natural thing, but it's more like one of the I don't wanna give too much away. Hopefully, some people listening, are able to come on a retreat or experience this for themselves, but our team therapist, Rob, does a closing exercise where he asks folks to like, he says some phrases like, "Squeeze the shoulders of a brother who is powerful, who has what he needs to succeed, who is supported by the group," and I think I've just seen a simple exercise like that, those affirmations spoken with a physical touch, just transfer power into people and break barriers, and so, like, those are 3 of the things where, like, they expand and they ground people, and I so those are 3 activities that I think are deeply I'll always do them for myself and speak about how great they are for others.
I think that's actually a really nice transition into just a little bit, right? You know, the menu is not the meal, map's not the territory. What does it nuts and bolts look like? What is the work that you're doing? And tell us a little bit more about like what have you got coming up in
Mhm.
2026?
So when we first started, we were primarily doing 4-day retreats, 4-day nature-based retreats, and during those retreats, our team therapist leads some workshops on understanding your trauma and building your mental well-being toolkit. We introduce men to outdoor activities and potentially new outdoor activities in this nature-based space and give them access to mental health and outdoor gear. So like access to 3 months of free therapy or access to hiking boots and all that kind of thing. So that was our primary programming for the first couple of years. Right now, we're expanding that. I think we understand one, the logistics and the
Yeah.
investment into like these retreats. I think we had 45 men on one in the North Cascades and 30 our last one in California. That takes a lot,
A lot.
and it's also I don't want people to feel like the only place that they can get healing is when they come to us. And so what we've expanded into this model and framework we call communities of care, where we are hosting our retreats. We host those signature retreats, but we also host community events. We're expanding to host some community events where both these men and the people they're connected to can benefit from different doses of our pillars. And we have 5 pillars of rest, brotherhood, uh, or rest, nature, brotherhood, mental health, and personal development. So we host smaller community events, whether it be a panel and opening up. We took over a rock climbing gym and gave away free passes for folks to learn how to rock climb, and then we also talked about mental health. So smaller community based events that open up our audience and share some of the things that we're doing in the retreats on a different scale. And this idea of communities of care, these community
Yeah.
events, they give an opportunity for partnership with and collaboration with community organizations and with some of these systems that you've talked about. And so we're partnering with the National Alliance on Mental Illness to do some trainings and a podcast and host a men's breakfast so that the audiences that we're connected to, the communities we're connected to, we can be that bridge and that conduit for the information and the resources they have to flow into the community. And we hope that as it continues, we're able to connect with hospitals, community therapists, all of these different kind of programs to make this more consistently part of the fabric of these communities that we work with. In 2026, we have 3 communities of care that we're fostering very specifically, and so we're working in Colorado or based in Denver, in Atlanta, and in Washington, DC, partnering with local organizations,
Mm.
with state-related um, healthcare organizations, and anyone who has an interest in the well-being of community to either run our community programs, to partner with them in how they run their community programs, and at some point this year to host a retreat that coalesces all of those things into a 4-day weekend for Black men. So we're fleshing out this communities of care model and testing it this year, and those are some of the places where we'll be doing that and what that looks like. Most of that, the retreats and whatnot, will happen in the second half of the year, and for the first half, we're building the resources and the relationships and hosting some smaller community events to make that happen.
Nice. Last question, and I might this. Oh, let's just see. So, what happens when you build up your own power and give it away to others?
I don't think it doesn't go it grows. It's like it's never I think but when you build your own power and give it away, you find that one, people you end up in spaces and community where people are giving their power to you, and your power grows, your capacity for power grows. So, you're not losing the power you give away. Like, power is not this finite resource that where science tells you energy isn't destroyed, it's only transferred. That's similar to this power sense, except in the sense that I don't lose the power I give to you. If anything, I am stronger because we have this shared power. And so, yeah, the framing of it for is an idea of there's an excitement and a untapped potential. There's a radical imagination of how much power we could build when we share it. And that reframing is amazing to witness, to be a part of, and to think about. And so even in spaces like this, I'm grateful to you where you're like, "Hey, like, let's talk about this on our podcast." And it's like, that's you're not losing power. You're sharing your power with me. I'm sharing my power with you, and there's something created here in this conversation that would not have happened anywhere else.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. CJ Goulding. There you go. Boys in the Wood. Look him up. What's your website?
So it would be boys, BoyzenThewood.org. So Boys in the Wood, like the 1991 movie by John Singleton, but with a W instead of an H.
The W instead of an H. 1991. That is an awfully long time.
You know, doesn't feel that long ago, but
Doesn't feel that long ago.
when you count it,
CJ, thank you for hanging out with me today. I really
for
appreciate
sure.
you, man. I look forward to seeing you again in real
Yes,
person time, and keep doing what you're doing.
absolutely. Thank you for having me, and look forward to continuing the conversation with you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Before you go, if this conversation meant something to you, would you do me a favor? Subscribe to the Mankind Podcast wherever you're listening. Leave us a review. Share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. That is how these conversations find the people who need them, who are looking for them, who want to hear them. And one more thing, for a long time, you've heard this on the podcast, we've been told a story that men aren't supposed to share what's really going on, that caring is weakness, that feeling is dangerous, that asking for support somehow makes us less of a man. That is old news. That stigma is dead. You are free to write a new story. We are free to care deeply, feel fully, live on purpose, build honest friendships, to become the the men we dream of becoming. We're free to become powerful partners in healing our families, our communities, and our world. If you're a man looking for that kind of freedom, or you're someone who loves a man and wants him to experience that freedom, I want to invite you to come find us at the Mankind Project. We'll save a seat for you. Till next time, take good care of yourselves and each other. Hey, it's Boysen. On the Mankind Podcast, we've brought some incredible guests on to talk about the importance of doing the work to improve our mental and emotional health. And here's the truth. Multiple times over the last 25 years, I've had the help of one-on-one work with some amazing therapists. For me, for my wife, for both of us as adoptive parents, and for our kids. The Mankind Project and Men's Group, though awesome, are not a substitute for professional mental health support. And so I'm thrilled that the Mankind Podcast now has BetterHelp as a sponsor for the show. BetterHelp works online. It asks you what you're working on and then matches you for live one-on-one sessions with a licensed therapist, someone trained to work with you, listen, and offer helpful insights. I'm using BetterHelp. It's super easy, and I like what I'm getting. If getting one-on-one support in the comfort of your own space feels like a good direction for you, I invite you to check it out. Go to the link in the show notes or betterhelp.com/mankind. And if you sign up, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy.